All right, we are live on Facebook, Instagram, and Zoom, and it's awesome to be with you. Just gonna maximize my screen here. So we're here with Michelle Caravia. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Very good, thank you. So we had a conversation yesterday, and tell people, so people know a little bit about me. I'm Marta. I have a company called Culture and Innovations, which is dedicated to helping people be more creative and for creative people to help do more of the business side of things. So in general, practical creativity, how to apply creative things to life and to business. So tell us more about you.
Well, I'm a singer. I was a vocal performance major, so I do that as much as possible. I sing at a church. I do gigs on the side. I've also been into improv, which has been really great in my life. And I was in an interactive show at the Broward Center. So that's kind of last month, so which seems like 4 years ago. So that's kind of my creative background. I play the piano, not as well as I should, but I play the piano. And yeah, I do. I did work at a hotel. Hotels have been affected by COVID-19, so I'm kind of at a point where it's like, okay, what other resources do I use? So this is super helpful.
Excellent. Totally hear that. And yes, the hotel industry, the tourism industry here in Miami and everywhere, everything is being affected right now, and everything is very uncertain as to how long this will be, what it means going forward. And so there is a lot of uncertainty, and I'm glad you brought that up. Some of the things that we've been talking about on this stream are how can creative people in this era of uncertainty ground themselves and come up with ways of coming out of this that they feel like they've done something productive, something, again, it's not to produce. The idea for me is about how you can use this time to learn new things or discover your purpose, or if you have extra time that you've been wanting to have, now what do you do with that time? I know we talked about that a little bit yesterday. So what does this mean for you? And I know we had a discussion, and you probably have had a couple other thoughts since then, but what's on your mind, Michelle?
No, okay. If you want to know, I'll tell you. I was thinking about the conversation and that we had yesterday. And one of the things that you said, which relates directly to what you just said, was the fact that, you know, I was in a very comfortable place. I didn't have to make any changes. And so there was the idea of, you know, whatever I'm supposed to do, or something will present itself, or something will make itself known to me. And I'm really open to that, and I think that it's a positive way to think. On the flip side, I was very passive about it, you know. And one of the things you said was it's great to be open to receiving something, but in the meantime, you have to feel like you're of value and feel that you're useful in some way. So this has kind of almost forced me to that reality. A lot of us just have a lot of time to just sit and think. so it can lead you into a downward spiral, or it can lead you into a not downward spiral. And doing something will keep you from going down that downward spiral, and also hopefully expedite whatever it is that's supposed to be presented to you. So so really it has been a challenge. I do have so much time. Years ago, I would freak out, and this would have scared me, and I wouldn't have known what to do. And I feel like I've grown a lot in the fact that I'm viewing this as not something terrible. Yes. So anyways, that was a long answer, but doing something in the meantime, just so that you feel like you're moving forward, you know. And thanks to technology, we can kind of do that. So
yeah, for sure. It's funny. One of my clients in Miami Gardens is she does an after-school program for girls who are exhibiting at-risk behaviors to help them discover their purpose and then make transformation. And one of the things that she was saying is, I think I'll take this time and I'll just rest and I'll just plan and I'll just, respond however I can, but mainly I'm just gonna take this time to regenerate. And she did that for 2 days. And I was like, how's that going? Because I know she's a person who's so passionate, she needs to be hands-on. So she actually tried out the whole, she felt better, she rested, she slept, she nurtured herself, she did self-care. And then within 2 days, she was a little bit climbing the walls, ugh. So we came up with a plan together for how she could use the time and, adapt so that she was still providing services. Because going from 200% to 0 for her, it just wasn't gonna work. So I love what you're saying also, because it's helping me think about when you have time, what is the thing that previously we've just been in such a deficit mindset around time, and now what do we do with it? And for me, the answer, just like this woman, she has to create. She needs to be in it doing something. So I think for creative people, especially, when you have time, there is a point at which you can sit and you can wait, and things will transpire. Things are on their way. Things are clearing. Things are coming. I really do believe that, because nothing stands still. It's like a law. Everything is changing all the time, whether or not we want it to. And sometimes I think we get into an illusion that we have more control than we think we do. But what I love about being a creator is that by accepting the responsibility and of the gifts that we have, we actually get to put our own energy and our own momentum in the universe by using those gifts and talents to create. And for a creator to not create, for a performer to not perform, in my mind, that just seems like it messes with the balance of the universe a little bit, because it's unnatural. Creators got to create. And, it really is a privilege and a responsibility to share the gifts and the talents that we have. And one of the things that I work with people on is finding what is that gift, what is that talent. A lot of people come to me saying, I've been doing this thing for a while, it's not floating my boat, but it's not painful enough to make a change. I'm not saying this is anybody in particular, but I feel like it's just not right, and I could be happier, I could feel more fulfilled, I could feel more connected to what I think I'm supposed to do. I just know that whatever this is isn't exactly right. So one of the things that I usually encourage people to do is to recognize that because things are changing, nothing is fixed. So when you have an opportunity to be a creator, I like to remind people, because also, especially performers, we're all or nothing. I have to be on stage at the Met, or I will never try an audition ever, right? So we tend to go to the extremes, and I think that that's just the way the creative brain works. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if we didn't have the capacity to go for that big thing, we wouldn't, you know, be able to perform, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of kind of like personal integrity to stand in front of people and bare your soul on stage. But basically, when you're in a place where you actually are sharing those gifts and talents, there's something that comes back to you. And even though I have a distinct sense that it's very different right now to perform and to create, because the interface is different. When you perform in a concert hall, you perform in a space with human beings, you get something back. So being in a digital space, digital isn't necessarily, I mean, we're doing Zoom right now, but there's a distance, right? So I think this is also calling on us to be very creative, to use our gifts and talents in a new way. But when we think about being productive, I don't mean productive like be a workaholic. What I'm talking about is, this is a time when we have an opportunity to do a small experiment. So again, not going way overboard, like I'm committing to this huge thing, because number one, it'll never work because it's too big and therefore daunting, and therefore we're not perfect, and we're gonna cut ourselves off before we even start because we have this perfection thing. But there's nothing wrong with, and in fact, there's a lot of joy and a lot of a sense of control when you can do a small experiment. So actually the first day there was a cellist who was on, and he said, I don't really know what to do right now. And, you know, I encouraged him to do a small experiment, and from a data informed place rather than a what if place, or I'm not a capable place or whatever, like just a little experiment that he could stick with for, I don't know, 3 days, 5 minutes, 10 days, a month, just to actually get life experience doing that thing. So when you're looking at your purpose, or you're looking at something like, how am I gonna get through today? Any of those things is a window in which you can do a small experiment. So what is this sparking as we're talking here, Michelle?
I mean, geez. I mean, like we spoke a little bit yesterday. I am not well versed in like Instagram, which seems to be like the big thing. I'm more of a Facebook person, but Instagram can reach a lot more people. So in the recesses of my mind, you know, there have been thoughts of just posting videos, and then there's the thought of, and then I have the immediate thought of, oh, everyone else is doing that, so why would I try? So that creeps in. You know, I've thought of, you know, writing parody songs just like everyone's been doing about what's going on, those kinds of things. But yeah, I think it's interesting because the whole thought process of somebody else can do this better than I can automatically creeps in, which is just why that doesn't mean no good at this point, you know. Yeah, and I mean, the other thing about us is collaborating. So it's tough being separated from people and not knowing how to technologically kind of combine everything. So one of the things I love about performing is feeling the energy between people and the vibe and the you know, that whole aspect of it, which is almost tangible, to not have it. So so there, you know, that's just a whole other different mindset, kind of switching your mind around.
I love that. And I think what you're describing sounds like imposter syndrome to me, which is like, well, I have this impulse to share something, but I don't really, that person already knows it, and like they're really good at it. So who am I to try? Who am I to put my thoughts out there? And that is something that I have gotten over myself. And, you know, a lot of us have it, especially those of us who are artists. The idea of who am I to do this? Well, yeah, who are you to do it? But if you give up before you try, then again, you're depriving the world of your unique point of view, your gifts and talents. And I really do believe that there is space for everybody. The question is, if that person has it down pat, why should I start that? The thing is, like, they've already put it out there and they had that same idea or the same impulse to share. They just went ahead and did it, and they now have that body of work. They have that evidence. They have that experiment out there. So of course they know more than you because they did that thing, even if it's like a 15-second clip. I mean, and that's really where, like, life experience is the only teacher, and anything you can do to give you experience doing something. This is why I say, like, an experiment that's like in miniature. If you decide you're going to share 15 seconds of video that has a really solid one-liner or a really beautiful note, you're going to get experience and you're going to learn from that. So this is day 8 of a live stream that I'm doing as an experiment and try to be of service. And, like, I keep learning things every day. Like, I got a light so that half my face is not in shadow. So, you know, I think most of what we think, again, we're like, it's all or nothing. But really what it is it's like little experiments. And when you think about, like, your journey and your development as a musician, it really has been about, like, little things that add up, little, and then you come to a breakthrough. So if we don't start the thing, then we don't get to a breakthrough because we're not in a place where we're, like, testing and gathering information. I really think that creative people are more like scientists than they give themselves credit for, because science seems so rational and creativity seems so obviously the other part of the brain. But again, like, there's a reason we have both. And I think that you can look at your creative practice in a kind of, like, methodical way, like a scientist. So you're like, I was coaching somebody last week, and this is a person who really likes a lot of things. They want their brain and their heart are, like, so open to everything, but that makes it hard for them to, like, settle on what to do. And, you know, with parents and people who have expectations that they be productive and that they earn money, you know, which are definitely priorities. But, you know, when you have a strong parent figure in your life, that parent may have a different set of views than you as to what the priority is. But the thing is, you know, going back to the beginning of the conversation, if we have a sense of our purpose and we have found that, we're grounded in a way that the work starts to unfold. And we can do little experiments to try to figure that out. But she was under this, like, heavy weight of, I have to figure out my whole life's plan right now for the rest of my life. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty hard. And what we came to was, for the next 18 months, doing, like, a 3-month module. She's a person who's, like, an educator. So, like, what if you gave yourself in the next 18 months, like, a 3-month module where you learn one thing and you just kind of play with it and experiment with it, and don't necessarily need a hard outcome. But if we have time, and I hope this does not last for 18 months, but within at least the next 3 months, it sounds like we're going to be pretty much parked here for a little while. So what might you want to do in the module that you have of time right now, which is 3 months, or maybe it's 3 weeks, I don't know. Just thinking about, like, what is long enough that you can really get better at something and gain that life experience, but also not have to make the rest of your life possible. Because what I found is, like, a little experiment, going to, hi Fada, our friend in Estonia, going from little thing to little thing to little thing. Like, when you look back, you're like, oh, that just kind of flowed naturally from one thing to another. And this morning on my run, I was like, oh my gosh, I have the privilege of talking to people about things they want to solve in life. And if I hadn't gone here and learned that and had that thing that looked like complete disaster and almost given up here, and then felt completely afraid and then learn something else, like, I've seen myself get unlocked by these experiences, and just in the middle of the worst possible thing, for me, has always been on the other side, some sort of discovery or opportunity. So in some ways, I'm all about, like, doubling down on the challenges, because I think they have gifts and they give us a chance to just like learn something. But being a creator, you have a chance to learn something anytime because your mindset is always open to new ideas and new ways to solve. And that's where I think like, if we're not looking to artists to help us get through this and we're just looking to work out, I think we're missing an opportunity because artists' brains solve things in ways that like other people's brains don't solve. And I think that again, if you're choking on your gifts and your talents, you have a real opportunity to help us see how valuable creative people are, especially in times of this.
I appreciate your saying that because I feel like one of my first conditioned responses is artists are the first people to get cut and we're not necessary for society. And thank God we have, you know, computer science majors right now. And I mean, that is my initial thought process. I'm like, oh, I'm the first person to be dispensable. So it's the thought of our mindset and the way our brain works being kind of necessary right now is something I never thought of. And now that I'm thinking about it, how many memes and parody songs and Instagram live video, like it's just constant people just commenting on what's going on, and they are creative. It's not the computer science majors. It's people who have thought about this in a different way. Comedians who are thinking of this in a totally different way. So it is necessary, and that makes me feel better because it makes me feel like I have some sort of value. The United States is not known for propelling its artists. So that's good to hear. Also, what you said about thinking of it in smaller increments, thinking of these as experiments is super helpful because I have to write this parody song and send it to people before I put it up online. And I think of it as this huge task, and it's like, no, just be kind to yourself and enjoy it. So yeah, those are both things I had never thought of. So I appreciate that, Martin.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. You're welcome. And I think you have such a really cool set of talents. So singing, dancing, playing piano, and comedy. And one of the things that has always struck me about improv is this idea to say yes and. So also thinking about like, we're in a time when we don't, it doesn't look like we have control, right? So what if we said yes and to this whole thing?
Right. Yeah. Which I feel like is what people are doing in terms of, the memes and the videos and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I'm gonna make this situation light, and kind of ride this wave instead of trying to paddle against it. Mm-hmm. It has a lot. I mean, mindset. I mean, mindset and your mental health throughout this whole process to me is just kind of number one. I just feel like you have nowhere to run right now, so you're kind of trapped in your own mind.
Yeah. So
it's bringing up, I think, for myself and for a lot of other people, just all the things that we've been trying to run away from. So, addressing that for me is key. And then you know, realizing your reality and like you're saying, just what can you do? You know, how can you make this, how can I make this mine? How can you make this yours?
Yeah, I love what you said about kind of we're in our own mind and we have no place to run, because I think there are a lot of ways to go with that. I hear the Tiger King thing on Netflix is like where a lot of people are going right now. But again, that's the creative product of somebody who's now probably getting a whole lot more watches than they would otherwise, just having us captive. But yeah, what if we were to take this as an opportunity to do the inner work? Because you're right, mindset is part of it. Being healthy in your mind, being healthy in your body, and then your attitude. You have control over all of these things. And when you start to go down, that's the time to reach out to people, to find your safety net, to do the things that feel good, right? But to also recognize that if you have an impulse to share something, there's probably somebody who has an impulse to listen, and that message would be exactly the thing that they need to hear at that time. I think about all the people who are scared to start things or scared to share. And there's like virtual empires of business and abundance and connection that just doesn't exist because they were scared. So in a way, you know, I think about this as an opportunity for us to do the inner work. And that's one of the things that, like, do an experiment. See if you can accept everything in the day. And, you know, musicians and artists, we are creators, we can't help it. So when you were talking about, well, they don't value us, that's kind of like, for me, well, what power do you have in that? And do you really need somebody to come to you to value you? How can you be proactive with your gifts and talents and sharing? Because again, in this age, we have access to people that we never had before. And, you know, I get emails from Ben Folds telling me to, you know, donate to the Fund for Americans for the Arts that is doing a lot of lobbying right now to keep the arts in place. And I know they is always something we don't have control over. So when I hear that, I go to a place of like, well, what control do we have as creative people? And you have control over your thoughts, which sometimes feel like they run away, right? But you have control over your attitude and then your choices. And being here and showing up today was a choice as well. And, you know, I thank you for that, because we get to, you know, be part of this beautiful experience together. And I get to be a part of the experience with you of what we're all going through and what you're going through right now. And I think there's a lot of value in sharing. But also think about, like, what as an artist, what as a creator is the power I have today to do something for them, not to ask them to do something for me. And I know, like, when we're looking for people to hire us, or like, hire me, call me, I want the gig, you know. But then sometimes it is those moments where you just do something for the pure joy of you, between you and you, that has no other thing than it feels good to sing. I think that's what you said yesterday. Like, it just feels good to use my voice, to sing. And whether or not anyone else is listening, maybe this is an opportunity for us also to get a little less codependent with our art, which is, if we can't feel that sense of exchange of energy from the people watching, maybe it wasn't really about them anyway. And when they come back, we're all gonna feel it in spades. It's gonna be like explosive, because we're craving that. But also, does that sense of expression and sharing really have to do with them?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I went to, what was his name? I did a workshop with two, like a Broadway musical, wonderful performer, and it was the same question. It was kind of like, why do you perform? Do you do it for other people, or do you do it for yourself? And it was kind of like, you know, some people are like, oh, I do it completely for myself, and they're like, well, then why do you perform? So, you know, it's kind of like, it was this loaded question. I don't know. I think there's truth to both sides, you know? Yeah, I think there's truth to both sides. Because the fact that I do still want to play the piano a little bit or sing a little bit in my studio apartment, that they're, you know, doing it to feel something inside of yourself is real. So being able to share it is kind of the icing on the cake, you know?
Yeah. And I would bet you that your neighbors who are home are really grateful for the opportunity for what you're sharing. I mean, we've all heard about the balcony concerts in Italy, but no, you know they are. Come on. This is
I know. I've seen that. Beautiful. It's beautiful.
And there is nothing that uplifts like music. We feel connected. There's just something about it. So we can be creative as creators as to how we share our gifts. And that's where I feel like you just can't keep artists down.
Awesome.
Well, Michelle, thank you. This has been a great conversation. I so appreciate you joining. Hello to everybody who's watching on Facebook and Instagram. Michelle is one of my favorite people, and she's just got such a beautiful light. And if you want to hear some beautiful singing, some beautiful piano playing, and perhaps some comedy, check her out. She just talked about maybe doing more on Instagram, so maybe we'll stay tuned for experiments. No pressure, Michelle, but if you choose to accept the challenge, there are people I know would be interested in connecting with you. In any case, I thank you for being here. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.